With the latest agriculture news from across the state and nation, it's time for the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. Here's your host, Sabrina Halvorson.
Good morning and happy Friday. I am Sabrina Halvorson here with Lorrie Boyer. Good morning, Lorrie.
Well, good morning.
Let's jump right into it. We're talking this morning about the possibility of another port strike. Now, this over on the East Coast and Gulf Coast ports, and that could have some issues here in the West Coast as well, or at least in some shipping our way, but it could also cause some problems for agricultural shippers around the nation. We've talked about port strikes before, haven't we?
We have.
And it's probably something that we'll continue to talk about. But so this time we're looking at current contracts will expire on the 15th, January 15th, 2025. So they have to renegotiate contracts. And that, of course, is where these problems always lie.
Yes, and what you said just a moment ago about we'll probably talk about it again. I just have this feeling this is going to come up a lot over and over again.
Yeah, I think so too. So essentially, they have until January 15th to mitigate any potential disruptions. So, to work out any problems that could come up before the 15th deadline that would cause a strike. As we know, these contract negotiations don't always go smoothly when we're talking about the ports because there is a lot at stake. And as things get worked out, the problem is our agricultural exports usually will end up being one of the commodities that kind of suffers from this. If we're not able to ship out our ag exports, what are we going to do with all this frozen meat, for one thing?
Boy, and we know, you and I have been doing this for a long time, we really rely on those ag exports. We have groups like the U.S. Meat Export Federation, U.S. Grains Council. This is what they do. They work on getting new markets for us, and we have to be able to get that product to those markets. It is a huge part of our agriculture industry. And not only that, but imports for some of the things that we need that just aren't ag. And I actually had seen here a few days ago, a video, and I have to be honest, I didn't watch a whole video. I was just kind of scanning it because that's what us Generation Xers do. And it was showing people that are already aware of this and are stockpiling stuff already.
Yes. Isn't that interesting? I mean, so just us, even as consumers, kind of got an idea of what shipping problems would be like, during the pandemic when we saw a lot of things just halt. I don't want to, don't start stockpiling up the toilet paper. We're not there yet, you guys, but it is something that we all need to be aware of. And basically, the issue is the International Longshoremen's Association and the U.S. Maritime Alliance talks again. They're negotiating contracts, and it's basically at this point stalled once again. So as they continue to work those out, if their issues are not worked out by the 15th, then we could see shipping come to a halt.
I know some carriers too, and doing some interviews and such with some of our ag organizations, carriers are already preparing for a strike. Now, I don't know the details of what preparation actually means, but shippers and the companies and all the affiliated organizations are already and have been, I think, for quite a while anticipating this. So at least, I guess, if there's any bright spot at this point, it is that we've had a heads up. They've known about this date for quite a while. But I have a question for you. In your opinion, do you think this is something that the U.S. government should step in on and be a part of or push?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a big question because I don't like the idea of government interference in like private business, but this has such big consequences on the nation. It may be one of these situations where, yeah, the government does need to come in and at least, give some guidelines, I don't know, to make sure that the nation continues to run smoothly. And and you were talking about exporters and things, people making preparations for this. I did a story and had some information from Dan Halstrom, who is the president and CEO of the U.S. Meat Export Federation. And he says that it is already affecting red meat exports. He says that they already have exporters diverting cargo or planning to divert their cargo. And he says that ocean carriers are anticipating that so that they have some surcharges in place. So they are making, they are trying to be more prepared for this if this does happen in another week or two. And, and that's a great question that you asked, Lori. Is this a situation where the government should get involved? And, and my gut instinct always says no to having the government involved in anything is my initial knee-jerk reaction. And like I said, that's a knee-jerk reaction. Those are not always the right reactions. But because when it comes to keeping our country running smoothly, this is an important aspect of that. Our ability to export and import, we are not, as much as we may like to think that the US can survive on its own, that's simply not how the world works. It's important to be part of the world economy. And if we all of a sudden are not, I can't even think of what that actually would do to our country. So this may be a situation where, yeah, we do need actually the government to step in um, and do something. It pains me to say that.
Well, I am on the same page with you on all of that. And especially, and you were referring to the article that you wrote with Dan Halvorson, and I too got some information from him. But this is why I think you're right. And I agree with you that this might be one of those instances that we need the government. This number right here, $100 million that we could lose just on beef and pork.
Mm,
That is a huge number for just those two commodities. Now think about that as we look at other commodities. That
yeah.
is significant. And then, of course, we all know these things trickle down. Our grocery store prices will go up, fuel
Hmm.
will go up, supply and demand, all those things that cost so much more. And then because we're talking about labor in here, I mean, there's not enough labor at the other alternative ports as we speak. So then you've got
Right.
that issue as well, is we need more people to unload more ships that are coming in those alternate ports.
Right. Right. We need to take a quick break here. When we come back, we'll continue talking about this and look at some of the root issues that they're discussing here. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. She's Lori Boyer, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
We are talking about the potential, yet again, for a port strike, this being East Coast and Gulf Coast ports. And one of the main things that is stalling these contract negotiations is automation. And we've talked about automation before on the show, Lori, and how it can be very beneficial for the ports. But if you're a port worker, you may not want to see that type of automation coming in. And this is, I think, is a conversation we're going to be having in more and more industries too, as technology advances with automation in things. It's interesting.
I think that, and it's a very good topic. I was going to throw that in here as well, that it is almost going to be forced at some point here. I don't know that we are even going to have a choice on automation, because in order to keep up not only with demand, but if these have port closures, those alternate ports that I mentioned before the break, and not having enough labor, I mean, I don't see any way around it other than there's going
Yeah.
to still be a stall, though, because of the cost of putting in the automation, the cost of the infrastructure and how that's going to look is going to take a little while. I think the other point to bring into our conversation as we continue, Sabrina, is how do we look to other countries?
Hmm.
That is always I've been doing this for 28 years. And when you talk to our ag groups, and specifically, I mentioned earlier, US Meat and US Grains
Hmm.
Council, and some of these others that really work internationally on agriculture's behalf, they'll tell you that it is about optics just as much
Yes.
as about anything, and having confidence in the US. There was already a lot of shakiness with our presidential election being so dramatic. Now,
Hmm.
this comes back up. How do we look to those other countries, and what is their confidence in us?
Yeah.
Like, we have these things going on.
Yeah, I have to tell you, the US is starting to look like your crazy ex, because we are becoming visually more and more unstable in some things, and that's not good. It is not a good look for us. Like you said, with the drama of our recent elections, not just this last one, but the one before as well. And then the continued problem that we have with shipping, countries are going to start to look to other countries that are more stable. And there used to be a time when I would, puff up and say, oh, there's no country more stable than the United States. But I think that with, maturity, we will say, and wisdom of being around the earth for so many years, it's clearly, yes, there are other countries that are more stable than the US right now. It pains me to say that. I love things about our nation, and this is where we're at the moment.
Now we're talking specifically about agriculture, but there's so many other industries such as the technology, computer chip, auto industry, steel industry, manufacturing, all those things that will be affected, which actually does a lot of that all obviously filters in agriculture because we use computers and automated systems and we build barns and shops and we need all those things. So it's all very important. But going back to my original references here, US grains, US meat, this makes their job even harder. So not only are they trying to push our product and sell our product on its own merits, but now I would assume, this is just me assuming, that they also have to figure in how this looks, how the optics are, and how do
Hmm.
they mitigate that, and how do they message our products amongst that drama.
Right. And I keep thinking also about the USDA trade missions that we've been doing to other
Yeah.
countries to encourage them to do trade, to trade with the United States, to buy our products. As we've had thinking about recent trips to India where we're promoting our specialty crops from California and showing, the stable supply of these great healthy foods. Well, if all of a sudden our supply is not quite so stable, that's going to make it much more difficult to convince other countries as well to get their products from the US. These products are available from other countries. Again, we like to think that the US does everything and that we do it the best, but bottom line is when you're shopping for a product, you're going to look to the place where you can get it when you want it, for how much you want it, and without headaches. And it's just like that's the same if you're a major national retailer. You're not going to go to the seller that's giving you problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a really good point. I mean, it's a very good point. I mean, we could go on and talk about some of the other aspects on this as far as even like what the workers are wanting. Is it fair? Is it being greedy? Is it, I mean, how does that work? And, what do we do to accommodate that, but still be able to turn a profit and still be able to have affordable food on the shelves?
Right. Right. There's a lot that goes into it, and we will continue to keep an eye on it, especially as the countdown continues to January 15th to see where this is going. For now, though, we do need to take another break, and then Lori will be back. This is the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. She is Lori Boyer, and we'll be back in just a moment. This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Live Earth, from what I understand, is celebrating 35 years in the industry. Tell us a little bit about how the company has evolved over those years.
Yeah, so it's interesting. 35 years ago, when we were promoting humates to do some of these things, such as nutrient use efficiency, at the time, fertilizers were very inexpensive, and some of these regenerative agriculture and soil building ideas were fairly nascent. They weren't embraced by mainstream agriculture and mostly encouraged by hippies and some of these environmentalists. So it's really changed in the last 35 years where nutrient use efficiency has become a big deal. And all of a sudden, these ideas that we were talking about the 80s that weren't very mainstream are quite in the main now. And I joke that we were cool long before we were cool. We just didn't know it. But the truth is to be a leader and a visionary in this industry, it took 35 years for us to really realize that these products are needed and necessary for modern agriculture.
So, looking to the future, then, any new innovations, new products that Live Earth is working on that you want to talk about now?
The most interesting thing is the effect on these products on Western soils. Now, sometimes with a old product, a new application makes the product new again. And the one thing we're seeing is, particularly in Western soils with high calcium and high lime, that humates actually help react some of the sodium in the soil and make a beneficial use of the calcium that's already in your soil. We did some trials with the Tulare pistachio trial, and we saw the salts in that soil profile move. We saw them immediately respond to the application of the humic acids and the humates. and mitigate some of the effects of those salts. So while these are old products, it's given farmers a new tool to combat some of their salt issues, which is an ongoing and continual problem in California.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Lorrie Boyer.
My guest here today is Tom Harrington. He is president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, and today we will be talking about wolf introduction in Colorado. It is also an issue that California ranchers are dealing with. Tom, the Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission has come out with some new mitigation plans. We'll talk about those. I know you yourself are a rancher in the western part of the state. This wolf introduction was a result of a ballot initiative that was passed by Colorado voters, not in this immediate past election, but in the election before it. And it has just continued to cause a lot of issues. There's been a lot of livestock deaths and depredations. So where are we at with this new proposed plan by CPW?
Just trying to stay up on where the next release is going to happen, when, what wolves it's going to involve. So that's what we're kind of in the thick of right now. Site assessments are also taking place, as I think we might have talked about in our last call. The next planned release is somewhere in Garfield, Eagle, or I can't remember now. There's 3 counties there. Garfield, Eagle, or Pitkin, all of which are surrounding our location, unfortunately. So people in our area are doing their site assessments, figuring out what non-lethals might work for them, working with their area wildlife managers and then non-lethal specialists. And we had really hoped that the pause petition that we sent to the governor and the CPW director might get some traction, but so far not a lot of response there other than they are working on it. So I don't think there's going to be a pause, but we're still hopeful.
If there were a pause, is there a certain amount of time that you're asking for the pause?
Well, their release dates are always in the wintertime. As I understand it, wolves are not heat tolerant at all. So transporting them in crates apparently needs to happen during cold weather. December to March is kind of what they talk about. So what we are asking for is to just pause for this introduction season and come back if they are still working forward with more releases next December, just to get everybody kind of on the same page, get prepared. We don't want another repeat of what happened in Middle Park up north of us, where those producers were just inundated with problems and no real solutions. They finally did, as you're aware of, capture the majority of that pack. I think there was one pup that they did not capture, but the others were in captivity and are still in captivity somewhere. Yeah, there is a plan that those are going to be released. We've even heard with the next new wolves that they bring in. So it's contrary to the plan of not releasing wolves that have been captured, which in essence just moves the problem to another place. So we're hopeful that that won't happen, but we've heard talk that it is.
Tom, what is your reaction to Governor Jared Polis's pointing fingers at farmers and ranchers when it comes to the budget side of things? Because farmers and ranchers have said, no, don't bring wolves in from Idaho, don't bring wolves in from Wyoming. And his point was it would have been cheaper had we used wolves from those states.
Well, I'm sure it would have been cheaper, but that's just contrary to anything to do with agriculture and production in this state. And Governor Polis, unfortunately, has not been a friend to agriculture in this state. He seems to kind of throw up walls and work against us literally almost every time we turn around. The thought that ranchers are the reason that the wolf introduction is so expensive is just preposterous. It's not the problem. What was the problem is that preparation wasn't done. They didn't look ahead and make sure that they were prepared for the problems that were going to ensue, how they were going to deal with the compensation claims, the non-lethal deterrents and what those costs were, not only to purchase them and get them out there, but installed and maintained. The Range Rider program was kind of an afterthought that does seem to work in some situations. The extensive range in Colorado is just not very conducive to the non-lethals, and they've proven that the non-lethal deterrents all seem to work for a time, but very short time the wolves figure out that they can work around it. They're not scared of it, and we're just hopeful that they maintain their word of the 10J plan, the wolf plan itself, and coming out with the chronic depredation definition, sticking to that, and then when that is identified as a chronic depredating wolf or a pack, that they are lethally removed, just like the plan called for. Everyone agreed to out of the SAG and the technical working group. And it's just got to be an option in the toolbox to be able to lethally remove those when all the non-lethal deterrents just proved to be a failure. So it's sad that he keeps kind of throwing things out there and blaming the ranchers when we certainly didn't ask for this. Even the count, I believe it's called the Colorado Counties CCI. I can't remember.
Colorado Counties Incorporated.
There you go. That meeting, 63 of 64 counties voted to pause the next reintroduction. The only county that didn't was Denver County. He should have taken that as a pretty good, strong vote that maybe they need to slow down on this. The Joint Budget Committee is trying to put the brakes on next reintroductions while maintaining the compensation funding. We're looking at some pretty large compensation claims that are going to be coming in very soon in relation to not only large numbers of missing calves, but highly different negative pregnancy rates. So on the average, a lot of the places we're hearing that are affected by the wolves, their open rate on cows is looking to be double what they're normally see. Decreased weaning weights, cow condition much thinner when they come in, and as I mentioned, just flat missing calves.
Tom Harrington, my guest here today. He is the president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, and we will be right back with more from Tom. And the second part of the show, we'll be visiting with the Illinois Farm Bureau and talking about their lawsuit against the American Farm Bureau Federation. Stay tuned. I continue my conversation here today with Tom Harrington. He is president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association. We are focusing on wolf introductions in Colorado. Much like California, there are a lot of issues surrounding the agriculture industry, particularly those who are ranching and raising livestock. Tom, what would you like to happen next when it comes to mitigating and trying to figure out a solution and some sort of plan for wolf introduction and reintroduction efforts in the state?
All right, Tom.
It is. We'd like to really sit down with Governor Polis and have a meeting, and just face-to-face would be a great deal to say, look, this is where we're at. We've been working on the non-lethals, getting our site assessments in place as quick as we can. We just don't think it's ready. Not only the CPW, but the ranchers that are going to be affected again for another release. And as I mentioned, we don't want to have another repeat of Middle Park, having to go through that. Jackson County up in North Park, they dealt with the wolves coming in from Wyoming, and then some others coming in across from the east after the reintroduction. And people have just had a kind of a non-stop. It's kind of went in waves of worse and better and worse and better, and no real relief overall. So I'm not looking forward to that stress, and hoping that if it does happen, we can be better prepared and have some reaction that actually takes effect.
Exactly.
Tom Harrington, president of the Colorado Cattlemen's Association, joining me here on the first part of the show as we just wrapped up our conversation talking about a ballot passed initiative in the state that requires wolf introduction into the western part of the state, which has just wreaked havoc with agriculture and ranchers there. In the second part of the show, we focus on another issue here today. In late August, insurance company Country Financial, which is Illinois Farm Bureau's controlled affiliate company, eliminated the Farm Bureau membership eligibility requirement for non-farm insurance policyholders in the state. This decision has led the American Farm Bureau Federation to terminate Illinois Farm Bureau's membership in AFBF. Illinois Farm Bureau Vice President Evan Holting is joining me now on the second part of the show here today. Evan, can you further explain this situation?
Sure. So in late August, Country Financial announced that it would no longer be requiring Illinois Farm Bureau memberships on non-farm insurance policies. And to our dismay, AFBF decided that they weren't happy the decision made by our affiliate company, Country Financial, as an affiliate to Illinois Farm Bureau. And so because of their dismay with that action, they decided to make a decision to terminate Illinois Farm Bureau's membership in American Farm Bureau. Originally, it was going to be effective December 20th. But we at Illinois Farm Bureau filed a lawsuit to basically say that we disagree. We don't think you can terminate our membership based on some of our contractual agreements that we have dating all the way back to 1990, saying that AFBF can't threaten our membership based on the business decisions of our affiliate companies. And so we filed a lawsuit in McLean County Court in November, and just the week leading it to December 20th, the AFBF board of directors decided to pull that deadline and instead make it 30 days, the termination date, 30 days following the conclusion of this lawsuit. And so we had filed for injunctive relief, basically saying that they couldn't kick us out until we finished and had the court hear our suit. So effectively, we received the injunctive relief by AFBF's recent decision to change the termination date. So that's a little bit of the structural side, but really just, it's an unfortunate thing that we're in this situation. We're Illinois Farm Bureau leaders, we're all pretty disappointed that, especially given the trying economic times we have right now as farmers, that American Farm Bureau would want to turn their back on 70,000 plus farmers in Illinois based on an insurance decision made for strategic business reasons in the insurance world. So pretty disheartening from our perspective, but I guess to keep it somewhat brief, that's a little bit of what's been going on with that situation.
Thank you to my guest for joining me here today for the second part of the show, Evan Holting. He is the Vice President of the Illinois Farm Bureau. And before I wrap up, I do want to point out that in a statement from the American Farm Bureau Federation President Zippy Duvall, he said the decision to vote out the Illinois Farm Bureau is related to maintaining farming control of organizational decisions. For AgNet West, I'm Lorrie Boyer. Stay tuned as we continue on with the show. Sabrina Halvorson is coming up next.
This segment is brought to you by Live Earth Products. To get to know a little more about Live Earth Products, we're talking on the phone today with Vice President Russell Taylor. Live Earth, from what I understand, is celebrating 35 years in the industry. Tell us a little bit about how the company has evolved over those years.
Yeah, so it's interesting. 35 years ago, when we were promoting humates to do some of these things, such as nutrient use efficiency, at the time, fertilizers were very inexpensive, and some of these regenerative agriculture and soil building ideas were fairly nascent. They weren't embraced by mainstream agriculture and mostly encouraged by hippies and some of these environmentalists. So it's really changed in the last 35 years, where nutrient use efficiency has become a big deal. And all of a sudden, these ideas that we were talking about the 80s that weren't very mainstream are quite in the main now. And I joke that we were cool long before we were cool. We just didn't know it. But the truth is, to be a leader and a visionary in this industry, it took 35 years for us to really realize that these products are needed and necessary for modern agriculture.
So looking to the future then, any new innovations, new products that Live Earth is working on that you want to talk about now?
The most interesting thing is the effect on these products on Western soils. Now, sometimes with an old product, a new application makes the product new again. And the one thing we're seeing is, particularly in Western soils with high calcium and high lime, that humates actually help react some of the sodium in the soil and make a beneficial use of the calcium that's already in your soil. We did some trials with the Tulare pistachio trial, and we saw the salts in that soil profile move. We saw them immediately respond to the application of the humic acids and the humates and mitigate some of the effects of those salts. So while these are old products, it's given farmers a new tool to combat some of their salt issues, which is an ongoing and continual problem in California.
To get to know more about Live Earth products, you can visit them online at liveearth.com. That is spelled LIVEARTH.com.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
For this segment, we have an excerpt of the Voices of the Valley podcast.
Welcome to this episode of Voices of the Valley. I'm your host, Corey Lundy. In this episode, we're joined by Beth Sims, Manager of Health and Wellness for Western Growers, as we explore the powerful connection between the food we eat, provided by the farmers who grow our food, and our overall health and wellness. From fueling our bodies and preventing disease to supporting a balanced lifestyle, we'll explore how nutrient-rich crops play a crucial role in our well-being with insights from our health and wellness expert. We'll also dive into recent consumer trends and address intriguing questions like whether frozen veggies are as nutritious as fresh ones. Who knows, you might be surprised by the answers and walk away with fun facts to share at your next dinner table conversation. Let's take a listen.
I'm Michelle Rivera, and I'm joined this week by Beth Sims, Manager of Health and Wellness for Western Growers. We'll be talking about how what's on our plates, provided by the farmers who grow our food, shapes our wellness, fuels our bodies, and nurtures our minds. Thanks for joining us this week, Beth.
Thank you so much for asking me. I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Now let's get into it. What are some recent trends you're seeing in health and wellness that are relevant to ag and the food industry?
You know, that is such a great question. In recent years, several trends in health and wellness have been closely influencing the ag and food industries. And specifically, these trends reflect changing consumer preferences, increasing awareness, and I know for me personally, a growing concern about food quality and nutrition. I absolutely love the let food be your medicine and holistic health approach. And more people are recognizing the role of food in disease prevention and really overall wellness. And, you know, the concept of food as medicine is really driving interest for so many people. I'm sure for you too, right?
Yeah, it's definitely a buzzword, food is medicine.
Yeah. And we can't forget about the transparency and clean labels. I mean, consumers are demanding foods with fewer artificial additives, preservatives, and colors. The clean label movement, really calls for transparency and ingredient list with a preference for whole, natural, and minimally processed foods. And in line with the clean label trend, there's a growing emphasis on minimally processed whole foods like whole grains, fresh vegetables, and fruits, as well as minimally processed meats and dairies. And the trends I'm talking about are reflecting a shift toward more health-conscious people and food systems. And thankfully, growers are responding by evolving their practices, offering new products, embracing technologies that support wellness and nutrition. And me personally, I think the integration of wellness with ag is likely to continue growing. I really hope so, and really shaping the future of food for years to come.
That's great. Now, how do you see the relationship between sustainable farming practices and the public's interest in wellness evolving?
Well, I love wellness. It's what I studied in college. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and I love food, my two favorite things.
Who doesn't?
Right. But the relationship between sustainable farming practices and the public's interest in wellness is increasingly intertwined, and I personally think it's likely to continue evolving. But how I see it is, number one, consumer awareness and demand. And what I mean by that is, as more people connect the quality of their food with personal health, there's a rising demand for sustainably grown produce. I mean, people are seeking food that's healthy, and it's these qualities that are typically associated with sustainable farming. And I really believe that sustainable farming not only benefits personal wellness, but also contributes to broader public health. And as we know, wellness is such a buzzword nowadays, but it's this wellness movement that is continually driving interest in sustainable farming practices. And as consumers and growers see the benefit of this relationship, we can expect even more emphasis on healthy nutrition.
And what are some nutritional benefits of fresh produce that consumers might not be aware of?
I am so glad that you asked this question. I mean, we know that fresh produce is a powerhouse of nutritional benefits, but a lot of these, and many of which go beyond the basics of things like vitamins and minerals. Some of the lesser known advantages of eating fresh fruits and vegetables are absolutely incredible. And they're really healthy too, and really yummy. But one of those benefits is phytonutrients for cell protection. Eating fruits and vegetables contain thousands of phytonutrients, and it's these nutrients that protect our cells from damage, reduce inflammation, and support immunity. For example, tomatoes are high in lycopene, which can help lower the risk of heart disease, while berries contain anthocyanins, which support brain health and help improve cognitive function. And fresh produce has higher antioxidant levels that have a multitude of gut health benefits from prebiotics. And fresh produce can improve blood flow from nitrates. For example, certain vegetables like beets and spinach and arugula contain natural nitrates that the body converts into nitric oxide. This is an amazing benefit that we can get from our food, and it's this compound that improves blood flow, which can enhance physical endurance, and can improve cardiovascular health, and potentially reduce blood pressure. And I love this. Studies increasingly show a certain correlation between the consumption of fresh produce and improved mood. Who doesn't want to be in a better mood?
Yeah.
And it's study after study is telling us that the antioxidants, fiber, and complex carbs in fruits and vegetables are linked to reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety.
Wow.
So the bottom line is incorporating a variety, and that's key, a variety of fresh produce on a daily basis ensures that you get a wide range of these benefits, often in ways that processed foods or even supplements can't replicate.
That's interesting. I know a lot of people who could probably use some fresh produce to pick up their moods.
Oh, absolutely.
Myself included.
There we go.
Perfect. Now, what kinds of things can farmers and food producers do to help educate the public on the health benefits of locally grown and organic foods?
Oh, I love this question. I really do. I think growers can play a crucial role in educating the public about health benefits of locally grown and organic foods by really sharing firsthand insights and creating learning opportunities and engaging with communities directly. I mean, think about it. Events like farm tours, inviting the public to a farm helps people see how food is grown, how it's harvested and processed. Farmers markets. I love a good farmers market. Community events, educational partnerships with schools and companies and grocery stores. Can't forget about social media, online content, and collaborating with health and wellness experts are all really good starts. And by implementing out-of-the-box thinking, growers really can build strong, informed connections with people that really foster and support public health.
Well, that's great. I've been actually hearing from a lot of people about farm tours and how eye-opening those can be and how enjoyable it can be. And especially even farmers markets too. People actually get excited about looking, touching, seeing all the different kinds of produce as opposed to just always going into that grocery store and picking out your produce. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing more of that and more joy out of picking up your food for the week.
That was from the Voices of the Valley podcast. This is the AgNet News Hour, and we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the AgNet News Hour. Here's Sabrina Halvorson.
And for this final segment of our show, I'm joined by Galen Beer, who is the National Sales Strategy and Product Management Lead for AgroLiquid. Galen, I just wanted to catch up with you and get the latest on what's going on over there at AgroLiquid. What's going on?
Well, we're kind of at the mid-year, what we call our mid-year point, because we sell according to a fertilizer season. So we've kind of been through the fall, and we've kind of been working on those early deliveries. Some guys are already getting fertilizer in that they will use in 2025. So that's kind of where we've been at. and also been having some agronomy type meetings looking at the research results from the previous year to help give some growers some good advice coming into the next year.
For our areas in on the West Coast and out in the Southeast as well, anything there that growers should be thinking about?
Well, both of those seasons start pretty quickly. So here we are, the season will be upon us. In California, I always remember the almonds out there start waking up around the Tulare Farm Show. And will emerge here and it'll be the middle of February. And the same in Florida. Of course, they're growing some things in Florida now. I think the main thing I would have guys thinking about is, get some decisions made, especially when it comes to your fertilizer program. Maybe it's sort of a living plan where they change it during the season, but I would definitely get a plan down. Where am I getting my fertilizer? What nutrients am I prioritizing? Have I pulled my soil test to give me an idea of what I should use?
And how important are those soil tests?
They're very important. And you mentioned two areas that couldn't be more different. You go out to California in that San Joaquin Valley where it's hot and the irrigation water often has sodium in it. And guys have to take that into account when they're fertilizing over the course of the season. That sodium will compete with fertilizer inputs. And so it's important for someone to get a look. And I know the PCAs out there do a good job with that, but it's important to get a look and get a plan of how am I going to feed my crop in this type of hot, dry environment versus Florida, where you've got more washed out soils. You got no nutrients really out there. You're bordering on hydroponics in parts of that Southeast out there. So you definitely have to have a plan in place, and there are different plans for those geographies. So, everyone needs to consult someone that can help them with their situation.
What's the best way for them to find the right person to consult with?
AgroLiquid.com has an interactive map, and we pride ourselves on virtually anyone in our organization being able to talk them through some of these decisions.
All right. And is there anything else that you really want our listeners to know?
Well, I just think that, I'm just reminding folks this year, take emotion out of decisions. Well, everyone's facing different economic conditions. The grain farmers certainly are, but I have no doubt that's spilling over into almonds and produce. Don't let lower prices get so emotional that you just sit on your hands and don't do a good fertilizer program.
All right. And that is always good advice. Sometimes hard to follow, but good advice.
It takes discipline. It really does. I mean, I grew up on a farm, have to talk myself through that all the time. So I know where growers' heads are at.
And the website, one more time, agroliquid.com?
AgroLiquid.com. You got it.
That's our show for today. This has been the AgNet News Hour. I'm Sabrina Halvorson. For Lorrie, Boyer, and myself, thank you for sharing your morning with us.
To get more information on the topics you heard today, visit AgNet West at agnetwest.com. You can also stay connected by following us on our social media at AgNet West on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Also look for Sabrina Halvorson on Facebook, and be sure to subscribe to our podcast by searching for AgNet West on your podcast app. Thank you for listening to the AgNet News Hour from AgNet West. AgNet West Radio Network, your primary choice for agriculture news.